A real political storm is brewing on the horizon, and its consequences can be enormous. Keir Starmer will face a tough debate in the House of Commons, because more than 1 million people have already expressed their dissatisfaction by signing a petition for a new general election, despite the fact that over the past 10 years, residents of the country have already gone to the polls 5 times. Hundreds of thousands of people are demanding new elections, furiously accusing the Prime Minister of betraying his promises made in the election program. At the moment, the petition has collected millions of signatures, and this number continues to grow rapidly. In just 24 hours since its publication, the number of signatures has soared to more than 1.9 million, and continues to increase at an amazing rate. Neither the BBC nor other major UK news channels bothered to mention this crucial event.
Are you now feeling the pressure? Because I think there's a petition that's currently
Your approval
online
ratings have dropped.
1.9 people who want the election to go again.
It's now
Is
over
it
2
2 million now?
It's now just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make.
More than 2 million people have signed a petition demanding new elections, and Jeremy Clarkson has come to the defense of this movement. Why is this so important? Because Clarkson is not just a celebrity who has an opinion. He is a powerful voice that resonates with millions, especially those who feel forgotten and ignored. His criticism of Keir Starmer is not just an accident. It is the cry of the soul of a man who is not afraid to tell the truth. Clarkson openly expressed his dissatisfaction with the Labour government, especially its indifference to rural issues. As a farmer, he learned from his own experience how politics can destroy people's lives in rural areas.
Honestly, I don't know where to start. I know you've heard a lot about it today, and I'm not going to dwell on that. I will just say this. Rachel Reeves has told us, 72% of farmers are going to be unaffected by this. I've just been interviewed by Victoria Derbyshire for Newsnight. Let's see if we can educate her here, if she's still around, Victoria. How many people here, if you'd raise your hands, are from a family farm? I want to see, right. I hope you can see that. I hope we've got our cameras from the show up high to see.
His words are of great importance, especially when they reflect the feelings of millions of disappointed citizens. Clarkson's position is not just a headline in the media, it is the embodiment of the anger that is accumulating in the bowels of British politics. One of the main reasons for this discontent was the introduction by the Labour government of an inheritance tax on agricultural land worth more than £1 million. At first glance, this may seem like a reasonable way to tax wealth. The situation is much more complicated. For many family farms, such a policy becomes a real disaster. Imagine that you are working on land that has belonged to your family for generations, and suddenly you are faced with the threat of losing it because of a tax that you simply cannot pay.
I'm pleased to be the first Labour leader in 30 years to be here in Barrow to make a very strong commitment to the work that they're doing. The triple lock, which is to support the Dreadnought submarines that we've seen this morning. I've actually been in the Dreadnought this morning to see it as it's being made, to make that commitment to the continuous at-sea deterrent and to the upgrades, which to the workforce here is very important because they know that this is a generational commitment. So my support for the deterrent is a cornerstone of our defence, and to NATO is absolutely unshakable.
Are you tired of lying? Do you hate to see how our pensioners are treated? Does it infuriate you how the farmers who feed our nation are treated? Tired of all these empty promises that sound like a mantra but have nothing to do with reality? Is it enough for you that we were told that electricity bills would go down, but in fact they are only going up? Inflation, which was supposed to decrease, is rising again, as if we are all in some kind of nightmare. The economy, which was considered one of the best in the world before the election, has now turned into one of the worst, and we are almost on the verge of recession. The current Labour government has completely collapsed. This is a real disaster that has fallen on our heads. Their policies have severely hit rural communities and called into question the leadership of Keir Starmer. Farmers who work on the land feel threatened, as if they are being pushed out of society. They shout that the tax does not take into account the unique problems of farming, because the value of land does not always reflect the real cash flow. And that's where things get even more absurd. While British farmers are being asked to tighten their belts to the limit, the Starmer government is reportedly providing subsidies to European farmers. For many, it looks like a betrayal, like a stab in the back. Why should British farmers, who are the foundation of our country's food security, be treated as second-class citizens?
Last night, a petition was launched calling for a general election on the basis that Labour have broken promises and done things they never ever said they'd do. Its kind of trust is breaking down, but unbelievably, it's already on 750,000 signatures. Even Elon Musk has been talking about it. I've never seen a petition go this quickly. Let me ask you, do you think there should be a general election because of what Labour have done?
His words are full of irony, and he's not shy about expressing his position. Clarkson furiously accused Keir Starmer of ignoring the protests of British farmers who desperately need support. Villagers are anxiously watching what is happening and openly expressing their dissatisfaction. Clarkson's criticism has only fueled these concerns, turning the inheritance tax dispute into a national topic that excites the hearts of many. People feel ignored, and this causes anger and discontent, which only increases.
Jeremy Clarkson has pushed back against calls for him to become more involved in politics. The former Top Gear presenter helped organise the mass agricultural protest in London on Tuesday, calling for the government to rethink their inheritance tax changes. But Clarkson now says that he'd be a terrible political leader. Speaking to The Times, Clarkson said this: "I'm a journalist at heart. I prefer throwing rocks at people than having them thrown at me."
If you decide to turn to Clarkson, he will not hesitate to say that Keir Starmer's leadership is a real disaster. And it's not just about a few bad decisions, it's much more serious. Clarkson's criticism paints a shocking picture of a leader who is completely unaware of the terrible problems Britain is facing. Farmers, rural communities, and even urban residents are beginning to seriously question whether Starmer understands what real trials they are going through. One of the loudest complaints is Starmer's lack of a clear vision for the future. His policies, including changes to inheritance tax, have been harshly criticised as short-sighted and unfair. Critics indignantly claim that he is more busy maintaining his image than solving the root problems that oppress the country. This opinion is actively supported by such bright personalities as Clarkson, who are not afraid to speak openly about what they consider incompetence.
Why are you here, Mr. Clarkson?
Well, because I'm here to support farmers.
Right. Are you angry?
It's difficult to be angry on somebody else's behalf. That's like being... Yes, no, I'm not angry on someone else's behalf.
Right. So it's not about you. It's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there. Classic.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. It's not the fact that I bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. The fact.
You told the Sunday Times in 2021 that's why you bought it.
These people.
Sorry?
BBC. OK, let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
I wanted a shoot. OK? That's even worse to the BBC. I wanted a shoot, which comes with the benefit of not having to pay inheritance tax. Now I do. But people like me will simply put it in a trust. And so long as I live for 7 years, that's fine. And as my daughter said, you will live for 7 years. You might be in a deep freeze at the end of it, but you will live for 7 years. But it's incredibly time-consuming to have to do that. And why should all these people have to do that? Why should they?
Clarkson fiercely emphasises that Starmer's approach to the farming industry is not just a mistake, but a clear proof of his inability to lead effectively. The farming sector is not just about food production, it is the soul and economic backbone of the UK. By ignoring the interests of farmers, Starmer risks losing an important part of our national identity. Clarkson's comments are not just emotional attacks, they are a cry for help that raises crucial questions about the direction our country is heading under his leadership. Let's look at the facts. More than 2 million people have signed a petition demanding new elections. This is not just an impressive number of signatures, This is a real storm of public discontent. This petition is not just about politics. It reflects the anger and frustration of people who feel ignored and demand change.
Is Keir Starmer the most ruthless leader we've ever had? Well, the Prime Minister has just killed off his first rebellion by suspending 7 MPs. The left-wingers, who have been suspended from the parliamentary party for 6 months, defied party orders on the King's speech by voting to scrap the 2-child cap on benefits. Those sacked include former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell and Zara Sultana. The Prime Minister was already accused of purging Labour left-wingers in his bid to win the general election. And don't forget, he sacked his old boss Jeremy Corbyn shortly after taking over. Before the general election, ITV News political editor Robert Peston said this:
"He is the most ruthless politician that any of us have known, possibly for decades."
What do you think?
What gives this petition such power is its urgency. The UK is facing many crises, from economic difficulties to political discontent. People are tired of empty promises and ineffective management. This petition has become an opportunity for them to vent their anger, and this anger is only growing. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments.